conference for July 11th, 2025. Joining today's press conference is Aubrey C. Norton, leader of the People's National Congress Reform and a Partnership for National Unity, Mr. Ganesh Maipal, executive member of the PNCR and vice presidential candidate for the APNU, Ms. Joretta Fernandes, Prime Ministerial candidate for the APNU, and Mr. Elson Lowe, executive member of the PNCR and economist. Today's press statement will be read by the leader.
Good day. APNU Coalition projected expenditures on its people-centered development strategy are necessary, affordable, and sustainable. As most Guyanese are now aware, the APNU Coalition, as the next government, intends to invest significantly in raising the quality of life of Guyanese under our people-centered development strategy. In this regard, during our first term in office, we intend to undertake the following. 1. Guarantee all households a livable monthly income. 2. Bring inflation and the rising cost of living under control. 3. Pursue full employment and ensure all full-time workers have a living wage. 4. Reduce and ultimately end poverty in all its forms, particularly food and nutrition poverty. 5. Eliminate child malnutrition and stunted growth. 6. Establish a comprehensive social safety net from womb to tomb. 7. Vastly improve income outcomes in healthcare and education nationwide. 8. Create an opportunity society where Guyanese can take part more in the economy, own their own businesses, make investments, and create wealth. 9. Building a well-being economy by moving beyond measuring progress in terms of GDP and the size of national budgets to one that focuses on quality of life indicators such as safe citizens feel, how much time they have for recreation, their job satisfaction, state of mental health, and trust in national institutions. 10. Guarantee good governance, particularly transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. And 11. Entrench participatory and inclusionary democracy by allowing citizens themselves or their representatives to help shape the decisions that directly affect them. The APNU coalition's policies have been carefully developed with responsiveness, affordability, effectiveness, and financial sustainability in mind. We will accomplish these and other measures of progress and development not through the guesswork of one man like the PPP, but by economic planning, inclusive of a medium-term fiscal framework and public financial management framework to ensure sustainability of public finances and the maintaining of macroeconomic stability. Economic development will be data-driven. In examining the affordability and sustainability of these people-centered investments, the following must be noted. 1. Expenditure on raising personal and household incomes will amount to no more than 30% of our national budget in the first year, for a total sum of approximately 400 billion in new spending. Specific yearly investments include 100 billion on raising salaries, 40 billion on raising the tax-free threshold to 400,000 a month for over 200 public and private sector workers and self-employed persons, an additional 53 billion to increase old age pension from 41,000 to 100,000 per month for 74,000 pensioners, 9 billion for the student stipend program for tertiary institutions, 25 billion for the child care allowance program. Enough fiscal space therefore exists now and in the future to make these investments. There will be increased oil revenues as existing FPSOs are paid off and new production comes online. By 2027, 3 new FPSOs will kick into production, starting with the Yellowtail FPSO in late 2025. Oil production will more than double over the next 3 years, adding another 4 to 5 billion to government revenues by 2027. Some of these funds will be prudently invested through the Natural Resource Fund to earn income on international stock markets. 3, there will be more robust auditing of oil operations to eliminate financial leakages and losses and ensure more resources are there for the benefit of the people of Guyana. 4, our social transfers will be a careful mix of direct cash, subsidies, and benefits, targeted and blanket programs for household and per person programs, monthly and yearly programs, and phased and non-phased programs. There will be at least 200 billions in savings through minimizing PPP waste and corruption. A kilometer of road, for example, costs at least twice as much to construct under the PPP than under the coalition government. These savings, which we are calling the good governance dividend, will go to the people as direct cash transfers. There will be increased economic growth due to greater local demand and multiplier effects, resulting in even more government tax revenues. 7, there will be hundreds of billions of dollars of increased VAT and other tax revenue due to higher consumption and no increase in existing taxes or the addition of new taxes. Let us be clear, these increases will be based only on higher consumption and not on any increase in VAT or other rates. I need to stress that because I know where the PPP will go. The APNU coalition government will not shy away from investing in people. We see this as our moral and constitutional obligation to respond to their hopes and expectations and to guarantee their human rights. We will therefore eliminate the astounding and unacceptable contradiction in our midst, where, for instance, Guyana has a per capita GDP adjusting for prices on par with oil-rich United Arab Emirates, while our poverty levels range from 35 to 42%. We are confident we can achieve the main UN Sustainable Development Goals well before the 2030 deadline, such as eliminating poverty, ending hunger, achieving food security, ensuring healthy lives, ensuring equitable and quality education, ensuring access to reliable and affordable water and energy, and promoting sustainable and inclusive economic growth with productive employment and decent work for all. All are convinced that for Guyana to grow, the PPP must go. I thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the floor for questions on the press statement, and you will do so by the raise of hand and stating your media house. Any questions on the press statement? Okay, I'll open the floor. For general questions. Any questions? Any comments anybody wants to make then if we move on before we go ahead at the head table?
We've been very clear.
I tell you the problem.
All right. With their
Hi, good morning. I have a question. Trina Williams, Ghana Chronicle.
go ahead. I didn't see your hand, but okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Mr. Norton, since we're on the campaign launch last Sunday, I have a question pertaining to the Mr. Leon Saul statement, Sugar Done. I've noticed the constant shift between policy positions, particularly you last month saying that sugar will be turned into a construction giant, and then after Mr. Leon Saul's statement, and this week you guys saying that you will revitalize sugar. Is this damage control, or what exactly is the coalition's plan for the sugar industry? And why does it keep shifting?
Thanks for your question. You know, the official position from the APNU comes from the leader, chairman of the APNU, who happens to be Aubrey Norton. And we have pronounced very long on sugar, saying we will ensure that sugar is viable. We did an entire press conference in which we indicated the direction that we will take sugar. What Leon Saul would have said, we put out a press statement making it very clear that it was his personal view and not that of the APNU. You're well aware when you're dealing with coalition type politics, these things can happen. But I can say to you, we have a clear policy on the question of sugar, which is in the domain long before our launch, and you should be so guided.
Thank you. Miss Anisha Williams.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I was having a bit of issues unmuting. My question is for Mr. Manipal. Sir, at the launch of the Apnu campaign on Sunday, you spoke about how inflows of revenue can be used to fund Ghana's development under an APNU administration. However, yesterday, Vice President Bart Jagdeo at his press conference basically disagreed with your position, saying that if oil prices fall, it will basically be impossible for the Apnu to implement all of these policies just depending on oil money. What is your position on this, and can you respond to the VP?
Let me respond. Jagdeo is not known for anything that is substantial in terms of common sense. This is a man who will say to us at the start of the gas to energy project, it was 900 billion. It is now going past 2 billion. So he has no moral right to question anyone. This is a person who said that feasibility studies don't matter. And that is one of the reasons why we ended up where we end up with this gas to energy project. But let me go directly to the question. We have made it very clear that it wouldn't be funded solely from oil resources. This press statement just did that. In the first place, it says we will generate economic activity to ensure that there is more income, people will have more to spend, and therefore we'll have more earnings. We made it very clear that our programs will not be riddled with corruption as the PPP programs are. When you look at the level of corruption, 40% of that money can go to the people. Of course, Jagdeo wouldn't want corruption reduced. The PPP thrives on corruption. In fact, it is interwoven into the fabric of their existence. But in our case, a government will be a prudent, well-managed government that ensures the reduction of corruption, which will result in more resources to be distributed to the Guyanese people. And so our approach is totally different. Now, we do acknowledge that oil prices can go down. But you know, Jagdeo should be the last to ask this question. This hypocrite went to Parliament and increased the money that he can take from the Natural Resource Fund, so that he is depleting the Natural Resource Fund of resources but then come in like a hypocrite to say the prices will go down. Didn't he know that when he was removing all the money from the natural resource fund and spending it while wasting it? What is he asking? Is he asking how stupid he is? Because if you know, as he claims, that oil prices will drop, and you yourself proceeded to change the natural resource fund, let us not forget the AP and UFC at the time developed a fund in which there was going to be continuous savings and not the raiding of it like Jack Deo is doing. And so our approach, we have said, is that we will change it back to a situation where there is continuous accumulation of resources for the bad times. And therefore, in our plan, cognizance is taken of the fact that oil prices can fall. And that is why we said we will also increase the production in the non-oil sector as a cushion for when oil prices would have dropped. So Jack Doe is talking his usual nonsense. You know, one would expect if he was an economist that he would be more sensible and deal with the figures and deal with the issues raised rather than just ranting and raving on things that he himself contradict.
Okay. Go ahead.
May I add?
Yes.
To add to what Mr. Norton just described, I find it extremely hypocritical that Mr. Jagdeo would speak about the volatility of the oil prices, given the fact that we have been speaking for the last 5 years, making representation in the National Assembly as to the fact that the PPP government continue to go and borrow against projected oil revenues, not considering that oil prices can go down. So to hear them come now and speak about oil prices may come down is the most hypocritical and nonsensical thing that you can hear from the vice president. But to add, when it comes to us removing the corruption, it was none other than the World Bank's report that said over 40%, just under 50% rather, of our revenues that are being directed towards capital expenditure is being wasted in inefficiencies. And I want persons to understand what that number means. We have over in the 2025 budget, the 2025 budget was $1.132 trillion. And in that budget, over $700 billion was allocated to capital expenditure. And if you have over 40%, you can just put, if you put it at 40% being wasted in inefficiencies, we're basically saying that $295 billion is being wasted in inefficiencies. When we say inefficiency, that's a nice way of the World Bank and the economists saying corruption. Almost $300 billion just been wasted in corruption. So when you remove that corruption, you have there over $295 billion to reinvest into these people-centered development strategies. But of course, we do not expect the vice president, like Mr. Norton just said, to want to remove the corruption. He is hypocritical. He has been borrowing and basing those borrowings off of projected oil revenues. And it is not his place to come now to speak as though he has any command over prudent spending of our oil resources.
So I just want to say, after listening to leader and Prime Minister candidate Director of Finance, that they have adequately answered the question, but just refer you back to the press statement of itself, where it is stated that the first year, the approximate sum is $400 billion in new spending that will go to raising personal and household income. So the social programs that we talk about, that sum is approximately 400 billion. And I'll just like to let you know that in the 2025 budget, the amount of money that the PPP took out from the Natural Resource Fund is $512 billion. And our program is just talking about $400 billion. And noting what Comrade Norton and Comrade Juretta said, corruption, removing that, diversifying, and investing in the non-oil sector, and all of this will give us back what we really look for. So I don't want to take away from what they said, but it was
Thank-
adequately answered there, I think.
Thank
I
you.
would just like to add a little bit of texture to that, because there's something that is, I think, really critical that we have to bring out, which is that this $300 billion that is stolen, that money does not circulate into the economy, generate tax revenue, generate economic activity. What happens is, because you can't put money that you've stolen in the bank, of course, there's money laundering regulations and so on, you basically have to put it, as we say in Guyana, under your mattress. So it gets isolated from the economy. As a consequence of that, whereas on the previous PUP and coalition governments, we've seen 70% of the national budget or so, varies from year to year, being tax revenue. That number has fallen sharply. So there's hundreds of billions of dollars of tax revenue that would otherwise be generated if we didn't have this monstrous amount of corruption, which is also a source of funding. So there are tangible costs. When a road costs twice as much as it should cost, that means, one, that money is being stolen from the people, but also that tax revenue is not being generated. And that's why we have to really reform the system to produce the returns that we should be getting from such a large budget, which is equivalent, as has been pointed out, to 5 years worth of spending in 1 year.
Thank you. Miss Williams?
Hi, yes. I have a follow-up there to what was said. Taking note of the leader saying that the party will not rely on oil revenues to fund all of its promises and instead generating economic activities. Instead of general statements, could you specify what economic activities will the coalition be relying on to fund the major spending promises, and how do you plan to ensure these activities generate sustained economic growth over time?
Well, first of all, I never used the word solely. I said essentially that it will depend in part. And I think when we're talking about generation of economic activity, there are a number of things that can be done to generate economic activity. Like I said in my address to the rally, one of the key pillars will be sustainable agriculture in every region. One of the problems you have now is that regions 2, 3, parts of 4, 5, and 6 are in the main the providers of agricultural produce. But you have region 1 with the land. You have region 7 with the land. You have region 8 and 9 with the land. And if we aim at a sustainable agricultural development project in every region, the first benefit of it will be that all of the regions will be producing the food that they need. That kind of automatically brings down the price of foodstuff. At the same time, it will increase the purchasing power of people in those regions, and that will impact the economy. There are other areas of activity, information technology, for instance. Look, we are still at the point where we want to find out somebody's birth certificate. We pull down a big book and searching for the name, even though there were some attempts at computerizing it. We have scope to computerize this entire society, in the process generate income, in the process increase efficiency, which will result in savings. May I say this to you? As we pursue cheaper energy, if one looks at, say, region 10, one sees great potential for the production of tires. We have clay that is of great quality, and that in itself can become a major earner of activities in 2 ways. First, it will remove the burden of importing a lot of tires. And secondly, it will generate jobs and increase income in the society. So we have to pay careful attention to all of those economic activities that can produce new industries and generate wealth for the society and the people. I'm sure there are others who want to add to the plethora of things that we can do.
Yes, absolutely. It is, to me, something significant that we have had a natural gas, a pipeline that provides natural gas. It's been completed, sitting idle because the government has not appropriately planned to make use of that natural gas. That yields a variety of industries. We've spoken about fertilizer. We've spoken about the impact of fertilizer, low-cost fertilizer that can come from natural gas, because that will allow us to expand our agricultural production. That will allow us to bring down food costs. Expanding agricultural production, of course, means jobs, of course, means revenues, of course, means export earnings. So that's one area. There are many other uses for natural gas, which we will continue to build out, such as in the fabrication that will help to support the oil and gas industry, such as smelting. These are key areas that, because of bad planning, because of good old-fashioned incompetence, we have the natural gas right there available to us, but we can't make use of it. And while that is happening, of course, we have to pay for the pipeline, as that is an agreement that still has not been released, but is an agreement that the country has been bound to. So that is one area, but we will also point out that a lot of our policies focus on providing access to capital, because we understand that that will help to expand the Guyanese economy, and it has been a major concern of small businesses as well as medium to large businesses who are looking to grow. It has been difficult for them to get access to large amounts of capital, and that has held back the country in many areas. Many times we've seen big businesses denied large loans. So by providing access to capital, that will also open up, as an example, our shore bases, which will create thousands of jobs and so on. So it is, to us, an understanding of a cohesive plan, which looks at the various needs of the economy, which provides for those needs, and which allows us to grow the economy, provide more, to grow our GDP, and to provide more jobs.
Thank you.
If I can add to that, just very quickly, when it comes to the Natural Resource Fund, the way in which the PPP has been managing the Natural Resource Fund has given persons the impression that if $1 billion US goes into the fund, this is $1 billion US is what you have there for expenditure. We do not look at it in that manner. We look at it in different way. For example, we have an investment committee right now that does absolutely nothing. An investment committee that should be looking at $1 billion US going into the Natural Resource Fund and saying, these are the ways in which we can maximize this $1 billion US so that we'll have more money to spend in the country, more money to reinvest in the non-oil sectors. This is not what has been happening. So we need Guyanese now to relook at how you've been looking at it. The PPP has placed it in your mind that money coming into the Natural Resource Fund, that is the money that will be available for spending. It's not just monies available for spending. We look at those as monies available for both spending and reinvesting. We have to invest in order to maximize. One of the things that I would say when it comes to the non-oil economy for the PPP is that the PPP does not pay keen attention to project management. So what they've been doing has been failing, because they basically look at identifying a project, implementing it, and they don't go further than that. Anyone that actually studies economics or any part of planning would know a project cycle goes further. You have to identify, you have to implement, you have to monitor, you have to evaluate, and you have to keep that sustainable cycle working in order for a project to be successful. The PPP has failed tremendously in doing that. That's why we had Black Belly Sheep Project. They've spent money on those sheep, bring them in. Where are they now? They never develop a sustainable project because they're only concerned with actually implementing at the top and stopping there, because that's where they get their drawbacks. We will not be managing the economy in that manner, because we are managing an economy that is people-centered. So we need to make sure that every project that is implemented will actually be successful, not just to be successful today, but it will be successful to the duration of that project life.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Antonio Day. Mr. Antonio.
Recording in progress.
Mr. Antonio Day.
Yes, good morning, members of
Sorry
the
for that.
press.
That was a follow-up. I have another question, if I may.
Go ahead, Miss Williams, with your one other
Okay.
question, and then I'll take Mr. Antonio Day.
Okay, so coming back to the campaign launch, this is for the leader. There was a noticeable absence of young people in the audience at Apnu's campaign launch. This is in stark contrast with 2020 and 2015. What are the factors that you think might have contributed to this?
In the first instance, your question is based on a wrong premise that there weren't young people there. There were many young people there. I don't know if you attended or there is the obfuscation of your ideas from some corner. But the reality is that there were a lot of young people there, and the candidates we showcased, most of them are extremely young. Sitting with me now, everybody except me under 40. So I don't understand what you're talking about. You know, sometimes I think people need to look to the facts. If you were on the ground there were endless young people. It is true that there were big people and there were mature people. And it is true in the society, young people tend not to be involved in the political system as they should. But it is also true that there were many young people there who attended, who spoke. And so I would think it is a slight kind of a jaundiced view to suggest that there weren't young people there.
I just want to add to that. Let me add to
Sorry.
that, Trina. I was on the stage at the launch of the 2011 campaign, right at Coffee Square. And then we had the closing rally right at Coffee Square there in 2011 also. 2015, we had the launching right at Coffee Square also, and the closing, and I was there also, a speaker there. In 2020, it was in the Durban, the park of itself, the opening and closing. And here in 2025, again at Coffee Square. And I took the stage at about 7:30, thereabout. And it was one of the largest crowd that I have seen in comparison to all those other rallies I spoke at right at Coffee Square. I say that because I've noticed that some news networks that are associated to the People's Progressive Party attempted to paint a picture as though there wasn't a crowd, and they were allowed to mount their drone, and they took aerial shots whilst people were coming in at around 5:30 or thereabout in the afternoon. We saw the drone up there. When we attempted to put up our drone, we were told that it was blocked, so we could not have put up our drone at 7:30 thereabout, just before the main speakers, to show that it was really and truly a packed place. It was packed to capacity, and it was a very large crowd.
We should also add that many of the 10-day workers that are young are prohibited from attending opposition rallies and forced to go to
And the public
PPP
sector.
activities. And so we had, in the circumstance, we had a lot of young people. And that's one of the points I need to make. And then there were a lot of young public servants who sat in their cars because they don't want to be exposed so that the PPP can go after them. Let us not forget, you're operating in an environment in which the PPP instill fear.
Yes.
There are many people who would want to attend. Was this a free society? The square would not have had space. Let us not forget, the police came and put those, what do you call them? Not barriers, the little red one, white one there. They put them there. Yes. And the police themselves recognize that the road they were trying to block became filled. Brick Dam had a lot of people. And then going up Basingen Road past St. Sidwell's. But yet you will have a government-controlled institution saying that there were only 500 people at the thing. It's a manifestation of the fact that they really can't count. But it is also a manifestation of the fact of the barefacedness of the government and the state media controlled by the government. Look, anybody in the state media should be ashamed of themselves. In the first place, go back and see when we were in government, if the rallies of the PPP weren't covered. And you see they were. But Guyana Chronicle, NCN, they are so barefaced, compromised, and controlled by this corrupt elite that they cannot carry one word from what the opposition, and then they come to ask questions void of the facts. Let the Guyanese people judge how many people were out there. Let the Guyanese judge how many young people were there, and you will see a totally different position than is suggested. Now, I would expect that a critical issue for the government media and other was really to find out why is it after 5 years we cannot get a gas to energy project going. That is a more critical question. Every day that it is delayed, Guyana is losing money. Guyana is not having access to cheap electricity. That is a critical issue. But you allow a buffoon to come every week and talk around and not deal with the critical issues. And then you come as if you are questioning in the interest of the people of Ghana. You are not. And we need to become very serious in this society and recognize that this country cannot be governed as it is presently being governed. There has to be change, or else by the next election, there will be nothing left for the people of Guyana. And so I do hope that the focus will be on the failures of this government, even though they inherited some things from us. When a government cannot complete athletics track or 2 athletics track in 5 years, when a government destroys the Mackenzie Sports Club and in 5 years cannot complete it, when a government builds roads that by the time the equipment is going, the road is going as well, a la Heroes Highway, those are the questions that serious journalists should be asking, because that is eating out the resources at our disposal. You know, I find it really weird that with the failures of this government, no one wants to question the failure. I understand why, because the government is vindictive. I've met contractors who say, look, we support you, but you know, if we come out in the public, we ain't got nothing to get. And I say to them, the government is going, don't be afraid.
All right.
To add, I must.
Since you spoke about this support, can
Before-
you provide a
before-
verified number of attendees?
Miss
More
Williams?
specifically, what percentage
Miss
of those were
Williams.
young people?
Miss Williams, one.
Let me answer her. Miss Williams, independent newspapers carry the numbers. Be guided.
And I must add, permit me to add, because I can see the benefits I can see where the propaganda would like to push when it comes to youth involvement, particularly youth involvement in politics. And this is because a significant portion of our voting bloc is young people. And it's important for us to address youth participation in politics and in this election cycle. First thing I want to say is I want to say a tremendous thank you to the young people that spearheaded the launch of the APNU campaign. Young people were put at the forefront and they delivered with exceptional abilities. I want to say that when we look at youth participation, it is not just looked at for tokenism. We look at youth participation, and I think I am a living example of how the APNU views youth participation. I am sitting here as the prime ministerial candidate. When we look at the PPP, on the contrary, we have persons like Barra Jagdeo sitting there in Parliament directing everything ever since I was in primary school. These are the people that want to come and lecture us on youth participation, persons that have cemented themselves into office and completely create a blockade for young advancement in their political party. And then they want to come and look at us and say, oh, where are the young people? The young people are here. They are active, they are spearheading, and they are not being used as tokenism in this political sphere. 2025 and beyond, the APNU campaign will be not just dominated by youths, will be attended by youths, and they will be recognized as we move forward, because we understand that we cannot just have persons that are knowledgeable. We have to balance it with persons that are innovative and bring that youth energy, and that is what we are doing here today.
And I just want to add that young Birbal, who delivered his first presentation on the big stage, and I think everybody will agree that it was a very good presentation. He's just 23 years old.
All right.
And already being attacked by the PPP.
Yes.
That's
There should be little talk about youth from the PPP. Here is a young man that made up his choice. Nobody forced him. But you think you have the right to attack him. But I want to make it very clear there'll be consequences for attacking him. Our position is clear. Anybody from any ethnic group should be able to support whichever political party they want. They should live in peace. But let it be well said that if the PPP believe in their stronghold, they will attack our supporters. It will be reciprocated.
And at this time, I'll take the question from Mr. Antonio Day.
Good afternoon, members of the press, and two substantive questions. One, Mr. Norton, you are aware that GCOM declared that 718,000 persons, I believe, are registered for vote. Contextually, we have to date not received any update on the 2022 census, and we are heading towards the polls. Your concern as the leader of the opposition. And secondly, sir, I visited the stock market and communed with persons who raised concerns about the constant increase in commodities in the market. And they're contending that today the government has not devised any substantive mechanisms to release these votes. Your concerns. Thank you.
I don't get the last question. About the...
Okay, sir, let me reiterate.
Mhm.
Persons on the market are complaining about the constant skyrocketing of prices of food items, and they are contending that the government to date have not devised any mechanisms to relieve these woes. Your concerns?
Well, you notice we have outlined positions to relieve those woes in terms of our agriculture, etc. This government only talks about agriculture and food security. They do nothing about it. We will do. As it relates to the voters list, you will know for 5 years, we have contended that the list is padded and that there was need for a clean voters list and biometrics. The government resisted it. In fact, I think one of the reasons that they called the elections earlier than they planned was that they believe pressure was building up for biometrics. And so, yes, we are concerned. We intend to monitor the elections as much as we could, but we also have sent the signal to the PPP that rigging wouldn't be accepted. There are going to be serious consequences for attempting to rig these elections. The PPP likes to accuse people of rigging while putting the rigging machinery in place. Let us not forget from the local government election, I heard Barra Jack deal with another set of nonsense talking about we are afraid we went to be the number one. We went to be number one because we want to ensure that all our people are there. And we remember vividly Barra Jagdeo having to apologize for the PPP forging dead people's signature. You're not dealing with a priest, you're dealing with a beast. And if being first helps to alleviate the situation, we have no problem being first. And we did everything to ensure we are first, but we are well aware that Jack Dale has no moral compass, not one iota of decency, and therefore we anticipate they will have people who they force to do signatures. They will probably again sign on behalf of the dead. And when we are first, if they do that and those persons are legally on our list, then we don't have a problem. So we don't have to hide anything. We know who we are dealing with, and we are acting to ensure that we stem the tide of indecency that characterizes the PPP.
Let me remind the public and remind the media here. In 2016, Joan Ambitkar from Stewartville had to go public and say that the People's Progressive Party forged her signature and her family's signature by placing them as supporters to a candidate in the 2016 local government elections. In 2018, the PPP had to withdraw their participation from constituency 9 in Maria Joanna Naikodak, Wakenham, because they had forged signatures that were exposed before the election. Jagdeo made the announcement of withdrawing. In 2023 local government elections, again, the dead person signed, where Jagdeo had to apologize for it. There's only one political party where there is credible evidence to support fraud and forged signatures to participate in elections. And I've said it before, and I'm saying it again. That party is the People's Progressive Party. There are thousands of evidence to show. The recount has a lot that you still can examine, coupled with these very local government elections where they were exposed for fraud and forgery. So no other political party has any track record of that other than the PPP that is cemented with evidence. Everything else you hear, it's anecdotal that's coming from them, where they're trying to create a perception, where they're trying to create a narrative. But they cannot take away from the fact that since 1960, they have been engaged in that kind of behavior, because it's documented in a book that was written by Balram Singh Rai called Against the Grain. We can read it and we'll see it for ourselves.
And, it is so ridiculous. You charge people since 2020. You can't prove one thing against them. You're now fighting to get a magistrate who will convict without evidence. You don't have any shame. You have charged these people, there are no evidence. And the AG comes out to say, basically the case will go. Yet you would continue to talk about who rigged the 2020 elections, and the very recount you asked for showed who did the rigging. So I just think that somebody is going mad in the PPP, if not most.
I will take my final question from Mr. Shamar Allen.
Thank you and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My question is, Shamar Allen, sorry, MTV News Update. My question is to Mr. Norton. The AFC would have alleged to conduct a poll which found you unsuitable or, in their term, unelectable as a coalition presidential candidate. Yet you have managed to attract some very prominent individuals to your list of candidates, while for Mr. Hughes, it has been quite the opposite. How do you explain this?
Look, I don't think
it only means that you're electable.
Hold a minute. I don't think it's an issue that we need to be fighting and pushing. The reality is the APNU has a strong team. The reality is the launch showed that we are strong, and that is what matters. What matters for us is the people, not what people think of me. It is not I who am running, it is the APNU that is running, of which I happen to be the presidential candidate. I don't see the need for all these side movements. The people are speaking.
Thank you.
On nominations day, we will see again that Mr. Norton is electable.
All right.
I have a question pertaining to nomination
Miss-
day, ahead of nomination day.
Allow her.
Please
Okay,
make
great.
this one very short
What is the
because
question?
go ahead.
Ms. Martin, we observe that Apnu persons are already outside of the Humaniana, despite GCOM's absence, but there's also the AFC and other small parties. Some observers have commented that the real reason that your party is camping outside of that of the Humaniana is because there may be a likelihood that there may be some duplication of signature backers between your parties and other opposition parties. Do you care to address this? And I have a follow-up on that same
There is nothing to
if I
address.
may.
There is nothing to address in what you said. The PPP came and said they were second. Why did they come and say they were second if it was an issue? I don't understand. Now the PPP wrote a letter protesting that they are not second and the AFC emerged as second. I think this is a garbage heap. We are wasting time. Normal election operations, political parties ensure they are there first because of the advantages being there first will have. So I don't know all the issues you are raising, and the PPP shouldn't worry. Let me tell you why they shouldn't worry. They control GCOM, and even if they got 4 signatures like the last time, GCOM ain't stop them. It is we who are to expose them. And so to the extent that they control GCOM and GCOM allows any of the nonsense to pass, the PPP shouldn't worry. We are saying to you, we are a political party, 70 years in existence. And for every election, we have always organized and had our documentation in order, and it will be no different this time. What happens with the other political parties is their business, except we detect fraud and expose the PPP again.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin, coming back to that same participation, your party while you did admit that the head table there and your rally had some young faces, meaningful youth involvement remains glaringly absent. Even your
I like being respectful to journalists, but you have produced not one iota of information to suggest the statement that you made is true. And therefore, I will not continue to utilize my intellect on questions that I think lack intellectual basis.
Thank you. At this time, I want to thank our media personnel for joining today's press conference, and of course you, our viewing audience. We do hope that you have a wonderful weekend, and Monday, July 14th, nomination day. Stay tuned and be prepared for what is to come.